Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Hawk Blogger Mornings. I am Brian Nemhauser. You can find me all over the place, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, at Hawk Blogger. And we're just a day away from heading over to Nashville. So I am super excited about that trip, seeing all of our Real Hawk Talk buddies, as well as a lot of you. We're going to have a party Saturday night, sold out at this point, but we're going to do Real Hawk Talk live Saturday night. That'll be fun in Nashville. And then we got a game on Sunday. So a lot of good stuff ahead. Apologies, my voice is a little hoarse. I still kind of getting over this head cold from a week ago. And this is all I got. So hopefully it's not too bad. Hopefully you guys can hear me okay. And hopefully you guys are all taking care of yourselves on this wet and rainy Pacific Northwest day. Actually, today's going to be, I think, just cloudy. We'll maybe get away without the rain. So a couple things I want to go through today. We'll start with just going over news from yesterday in terms of injuries and implications of those and what's going on there. Also, we'll talk to you a little bit about some stuff I heard just locker room wise and otherwise yesterday. And then we're going to get into kind of looking ahead, something that fans can do, teams cannot. We're going to look at where the things stand from a playoff perspective in the NFC West and where they might end up. So we'll go through the rest of the season using the ESPN playoff predictor and make some choices about how we think things are going to go and find where the real leverage points are the rest of the way. Now, I will say this at the jump. This is, of all the teams I've ever kind of rooted for as a Seahawks fan, this is one I'm not too wrapped up in whether they win the division, whether they get the first seed. A bye is always nice. Like, that's a huge thing. But I just feel like this Seahawks team can beat any team anywhere at any time. Now, a lot of people are like, well, they didn't just beat the Rams, and what are you talking about? They don't have a signature win. And I know that's how a lot of people feel. That is not how I feel. I feel like this is a very, very good football team that can, as I said, beat any team, anywhere, anytime. And does that mean they will always do that? No. But I am more interested in how they are playing at the end of the season, whether they're starting to get their running game going a little bit more consistently, whether they are able to kind of address this turnover issue and start to get their hand on that and some other things as well. So that's more where my attention is. Obviously, health is a huge factor in all those things. And we'll talk about some news that came out, not just from the Seahawks, but elsewhere from a health perspective around the division. So let's get right into it. First of all, let's talk about injury news. And we're going to start away from the Seahawks. We will start away from the Seahawks. We'll start with the Rams, who, despite getting a huge win over the Seahawks this past weekend, lost 3 starters to the injured reserve after that game. Right tackle Rob Havenstein is going to IR, and he has struggled with injury. This is a player that we highlighted before the season that had 2 shoulder surgeries. He's older, has struggled a little bit, now struggled a lot this year with health and pass protection. He is on IR. Warren McClendon Jr. will be the guy, or sorry, no. I think that's not right. That is, I think it's McClendon Curtis. Let me double check that before I get it wrong 2 times in a row. I do tend to get those guys mixed up. Will be starting at right tackle for the Rams in place of Rob Havenstein. It is Warren McClendon Jr. So yeah, Warren McClendon Jr. will start, and he's been relatively good for them. He was a guy that the Seahawks had in on their practice squad for a little bit, and now is with the Rams. But still, there's a reason Rob Havenstein was starting even when Warren McClendon's been there. So that's, I think, a meaningful loss for the Rams. Tight end Tyler Higbee also goes on IR. And that's a pretty big loss as well. 1 second as I blow my nose. So Higbee's been a guy that is a really good combination of good blocker, good receiver, obviously has um, good chemistry with Matt Stafford, knows this offense really well. They still are left with a number of tight ends. Davis Allen is, kind of emerged for them this year as a good blocker and a receiver. And they've got Colby Parkinson, the former Seahawk, as well as, rookie Terrence Ferguson. So they still have got three tight ends that they like. They recently signed like a pretty athletic tight end to their practice squad. Doesn't mean he's going to be good, but that does potentially throw a wrench in some of their three tight end stuff, depending on how much they're comfortable. They had a 4 tight end rotation that makes it a little easier to do a 3 tight end offense. Maybe they don't do that quite as much, but we'll see. And then finally, and maybe the biggest one, is Quentin Lake, the safety, kind of do everything nickel back that plays a similar role in some ways to Nick Eamon-Wari. He had elbow surgery. And so he went on IR, and he's one that he might not come back this year. If he comes back, it would be during the playoffs. So he will not be there for the second game against the Seahawks. And all three of these guys who went on IR, there's some question mark about whether they'll be back for Seattle. Seattle would be the first game that they'd be eligible to play against, but that's a Thursday night game. So having a guy come off IR on a Monday, and then you generally don't do any real practices on a Thursday night game, having none of those guys practice and then potentially come back on seems unlikely that would be the case. So I think those are pretty sizable injuries for the Rams. I don't think it upends their season in any way, shape, or form, but those are 3 starting players that are out for at least the next 4 games, and in the case of Quentin Lake, out for longer than that. Getting to the Seahawks injury situation, I think the best news in that injury report from yesterday was Ernest Jones, after coming back what felt like a little bit early from a knee injury, and looked a little bit at times affected by that knee. He was a full participant in practice. So I think that's good news. And this was not a ATC walkthrough practice. They were back to their normal Wednesday practice routine. So him being a full participant, I think is really good news, because we've seen Devin Witherspoon come back from a knee injury against Arizona in week 4 and play the full game. And then he was back not playing for a few weeks. So I was kind of curious to see how Ernest Jones was going to come out of that. That's initially, I think, some good news. We did hear from Mike McDonald yesterday that Torrey Horton Jr., Gray Zabel, and Tyrese Knight were not going to practice yesterday, and they did not. So Tyrese Knight has the concussion. Torrey Horton has still got the hamstring, and he has the shin. They're now just calling it shin injury. So I think we heard that there's some imaging getting done last week. Don't know what they found there, but maybe it's a stress fracture. That's just a guess. But from a shin perspective, I'm trying to figure out what that could be. And then Gray Zabel obviously had the knee injury and not practicing yet, but I got the impression that it's not out of the question that he will be available for them this week. So we will see what happens there. Some other injury news. Nick Eamon-Wari shows up on the report with a hand injury. He did participate fully, so that's good. Kobe Bryant showed up as a limited participant with a foot injury. We don't know what that is, but that's something to keep an eye on. Obviously, the Seahawks are still a little bit short on the safety spot, given that the Titans claim Jarek Reed and Julian Love does not come off IR until next week. So we'll see what happens there. If he was not able to go for some reason, then you'd be talking about probably DeAnthony Bell playing next to Ty Okada in the safety spot. Maybe that would mean Nick Eamon-Wari would get some safety snaps. Hard to say. So that's one to just monitor. Not a red alert, at least a yellow alert at this point early on. Mike Morris had a knee injury that had him limited. And then otherwise, nothing too concerning there. There are some players that did not practice and it was not injury related. So, that's that. The Titans, on the other hand, man, they had some concerning injuries. They had Jeffrey Simmons, their best player, the defensive tackle, did not practice with a hamstring injury. That would be a massive loss for them. He is by far their most disruptive player. So that's something to watch. Alik Iomanner, he is the wide receiver. They already lost Calvin Ridley for the season. They're a little thin. They let Tyler Lockett go. And now this rookie receiver from Stanford has a hamstring injury. He did not practice yesterday. So that would be also a pretty significant loss for them. And then beyond that, their cornerback room has been thinned out. They traded Roger McCreary. L'Jarius Sneed is not available due to injury. And then Darrell Baker, who, is not a name most people know, he did not participate in practice with a knee injury. So they might be down even further into the cornerback room. A couple other injuries of note there. Chamari Dyke, their rookie, really, really talented return man. He had a chest injury and was a full participant in this one. And then Chig Okonkwo, the tight end, was a limited participant with a foot injury. So that is something to keep an eye on there. Generally speaking, I think good news for the Seahawks on the injury front, but we will kind of keep an eye on that as the weeks go on. All right. So let's get to it. Let's get to kind of looking at the games that are coming up and where they will fit. If you haven't already given the show a like and click subscribe, please do. Would greatly appreciate it. And here we go. Let's do this. So I'm gonna make myself little and make this a little bit bigger. There we go. So what you can see here is where the current seedings are. Okay, this is where the current seedings are, and I think I can mess with this a little bit. All right, so as it stands right now, the Eagles are the number 1 seed, the Rams are the number 2 seed, the Seahawks are the 5 seed. They would be going to Tampa Bay to play the 4th seed Bucks. Okay, so that's how it is right now with nothing changed. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to you could select, if you don't want to pick every single game the rest of the way. So I'm going to pick that we're going to use winning percentage as the default to pick which team wins which game. If the team with the better record wins every game the rest of the way, which we know won't happen, this is how things would end up. The Eagles would be the 1st seed, Rams 2nd seed, Seahawks 5th seed. Not a lot changes when you do this, all right? But what we're going to do is we're going to go through each week, starting with week 12, and we're going to talk about where we think things are going to be. So we'll largely focus on the Seahawks and the NFC West. You'll see that there's some situations where teams have the same record, and so it will say it's a tie. So I'll unbreak ties, generally speaking. And then we're going to go one pass through, and then I'm going to come back to this and talk about how I think things will potentially end up and where there's some critical pivot points in this final stretch run. All right. So I'm not going to make any changes this week. I'm going to have the Rams beating the Bucks. I'm going to have the Seahawks beating the Titans, the 49ers beating the Panthers, the Cardinals losing to the Jaguars. I actually personally think the Cardinals might beat the Jags, but let's just keep going. All right, so we'll go to week 13 now. Week 13, couple things that I'm going to make some changes on in this one. So it's got Green Bay beating the Lions in Detroit. I think the Lions are going to win that game, so I'm making that change. I do think the Rams are going to beat the Panthers. The Bucks beating the Cards. I have the Seahawks beating the Vikings as well, so let's keep that. 49ers beating the Browns. Eagles beating the Bears. So all those things generally make sense to me. So we will keep going. Go to week 14. We've got one of those ties here between the Texans and the Chiefs. I'm going to pick the Chiefs. In this case, we've got Lions beating the Cowboys. I think the Cowboys are going to be a spoiling team that could cause some trouble. We'll come back to that. Seahawks beating the Falcons. Rams beating the Cardinals. Eagles beating the Chargers. That maybe could be a pivot game, but I think that's probably right. All right. And the Bucks beating the Saints, all that kind of stuff. All right. It does have the Bears beating the Packers. I'm going to switch that. I think the Packers are going to beat the Bears. So we're going to change that one. All right. Now we get to week 15. And in this one, we have got Bucks beating the Falcons. I think that's right. It has the Colts beating the Seahawks. I think the Seahawks are going to beat the Colts. I'm making that change. We can argue that. I think the Seahawks are going to beat the Colts. But, again, this is ahead. I'll study that team a lot more as we get closer. But I think the Seahawks have what they need to slow that Colts offense and punish that Colts defense. So we'll see. But that's what I'm picking. It's got the Rams beating the Lions. Now, this is one. I'm going to pick the Lions in this one. All right. I'm going to pick the Lions in this one. We'll come back to it. There's actually some injury news for the Lions that is worth talking about. And why don't I do that right now? So it sounds like I believe the Lions are going to be getting back. Are going to be getting back a lot of their injured secondary. They're starting corners, a safety, edge rushers over the next few weeks. So I want to pull up the exact state of things here. Where is the person I'm looking for? All right, Eric Woodyard should have this. Does not really say. Well, so the point being is the Lions are supposed to get back both starting corners soon, and some edge rushers. So there's a few guys that are going to be coming back before this game against the Rams. So that's why I have, in this case, I'm going to say the Lions are going to be able to beat the Rams. Now, we can debate that. We'll come back. We'll play with that. But that's what I'm doing it for now. Otherwise, 49ers beating the Titans, Eagles beating the Raiders, all that seems to make general sense to me. All right. So then we get to week 16. Bunch of ties here. We're going to have the Jets beat the Saints. We're going to have the Cardinals beat the Falcons. We're going to have the Lions beat the Steelers for sure. And then we're going to flip this. We're going to have the Seahawks beat the Rams. All right. And as you can see, one of the things that changes there is that makes the Seahawks the 2nd seed, drops the Rams to 5th seed by doing that. We're going to go over all this again. We can debate which things we should change, but I'm just kind of going through first pass. This is kind of how I'm expecting things to go. And then we'll play with it from there. All right. Then we get to week 17. Seahawks beating the Panthers. I think the Bills are going to beat the Eagles. So I'm going to put this at Buffalo. I'm going to have that happen. I'm going to have the 49ers beating the Bears. That could go either way, but that's how I'm picking it. We're going to have the Cardinals beat the Bengals. Actually, Joe Burrow might be back by then. Let's pick the Bengals in that one. And then I don't have any of the rest of these that I am going to change. Okay. So note that even with the Eagles losing and having the same record as the Seahawks, Eagles would still have the first round bye. All right. So keep an eye on that. And then let's pick Baltimore to beat Green Bay there. Now it's interesting. That doesn't really change whether or not Green Bay makes it. Yikes. Okay. So then we go to week 18 and got the Rams beating the Cardinals. Excuse me. Got the Seahawks beating the 49ers. We've got Green Bay beating the Vikings. I think Baltimore is going to beat the Steelers. We have Yeah, I'm gonna have the Lions beating the Bears. I don't believe in the Bears. Sorry. Sorry, not sorry. So that's how I like based off my first pass. That's how I think things are going to finish. Like, not putting a ton of thought into it. That's just my instinct about how things will end. And yes, that includes the Seahawks winning every game the rest of the year. That's what I think is going to happen. Am I going to be right? I hope so, but I don't know. That's just what I think is going to happen. If that were the case, what would have to happen for them to win the division would be that the Rams would have to drop at least one other game than the one against the Seahawks. I think it could be any game, but let's play around with this for a second. If the Rams were to, for example, if the Rams were to lose to Rams were to lose to, where's the Rams? Rams. Okay, let's say they beat the Lions, but they lost to the Bucks. Same thing happens here, right? It does change seeding and who plays whom. But generally speaking, you just need, there's not really a situation I'm seeing where if the Rams have the same record as the Seahawks, that the Seahawks would win the division, right? So like this is the Seahawks winning every game the rest of the year, including beating the Rams, and they would still lose the division on like a significant tiebreaker. So in this case, it goes on best win percentage in common games. Would be the thing that would give the Rams for the second straight year a tiebreak division title over the Seahawks. So yeah, you probably need some other teams to start doing things to, that the Seahawks beat in order for it to work out. But generally speaking, that's just that's probably hoping for too much. So I think you need the Rams to lose either to the Bucks this weekend, which is possible. It's possible. Or to lose that week 15 game to the Lions. One of those two plus the Seahawks running the table the rest of the way, winning every game is how the Seahawks win the division. So it is not likely that the Seahawks will win the division by this, by probability settings. For me, I think that I do believe the Seahawks are going to beat the Rams the next time. I do believe the Seahawks are going to win the rest of their games. And honestly, whether or not they're the 5 seed or the 2 seed, I mean, obviously it matters in the sense of it would be great to host a playoff game for Seahawks fans, but I'm not sure it's going to be the end of the world either way. Of all the teams the Seahawks could play in the playoffs, I think the Bears are maybe the most advantageous matchup you could get. I don't love going to Tampa Bay. Not that I fear that stadium, but that's a really good Tampa Bay team. I don't think that's an easy one to walk away with the win. Seahawks have done well wherever they've gone, but that's a long trip to Tampa Bay. I think San Francisco is a tough matchup, regardless of what people think. Brock Purdy is back. I think that offense is going to be a real handful the rest of the way. The Lions, I think, are a very, very good team and are going to be getting healthier. That's a tough matchup. And obviously the Rams. So, there's some ways that the Eagles could lose a game, but like, let's go through the Eagles rest of the season. It's not easy. I mean, could the Cowboys beat them this week? Maybe. I mean, it is in Dallas. Seems unlikely, but is possible. So that's one. You need the Eagles. Let's see. They play the Bears. Could the Bears beat the Eagles? Maybe. It is going to be in Philly. I don't have a lot of confidence in Caleb Williams against that defense and Vic Fangio. After that, the Chargers in Los Angeles, maybe. I think the Chargers are really beat up, and I just don't know that they can hold up against an Eagles team. What are some other Eagles against the Raiders? Nope, I don't think that's going to go. Commanders are not going to beat them. The Bills, I already have beating them. And then the Commanders again. So I don't think the Eagles are going to win less than 14 games. I think that's pretty clear. And I think that they're in a good position to get that first round bye again and be a team that you have to travel to face. Now, I think the Seahawks can travel and face that team, but that's where things stand. So if you go back through the Seahawks, schedule here, they could lose to the Colts, drop them down. They could lose to the Rams. Obviously, that would drop them down. And I think they could lose to the 49ers. I mean, all those things are possible. Interestingly, if they were to lose to the 49ers and everything else would stay the same, the Lions would be the second seed, which is kind of fascinating. But there's a lot of things in here that depend on who your common opponents are. I'm not going to go through all those different scenarios, but where I kind of get to is I think the Seahawks are going to win probably 14 games. They could win anywhere between 12 and 14, but I think that's the realistic outcome. And then I think the Rams, you need that team to lose at least a game against the Lions or the Bucks to have a shot at the division. That's kind of the way it has to go. I come back to what I said at the beginning, which is this is a Seahawks team that I think can travel anywhere they need to go and beat any team they need to beat when they're healthy and if they're able to attack some of the weaknesses that have showed up in terms of turning the ball over. So that's kind of where I see things falling. Now I want to get back to I'm curious. I'm going to look in chat to see if people have some different points of view on that. But before I do, I want to check in with the Lions situation. So they have not had DJ Reed, their cornerback, for a while. He's going to be due back soon, I believe. Let me double check that. DJ Reed. Yeah, so they're hopeful that DJ Reed can come back from IR this week. So that's a big return for them. Terry and Arnold, their other starting cornerback, he is in concussion protocol, but I think that you'd expect certainly him back in the next couple of weeks. And then safety-wise, Kirby Joseph, their starting safety. He won't play this week, but expects him back potentially potentially the week after. So yeah, it does seem like the Lions are starting to get healthier. That could obviously play a role. They're going to get back some other guys. I think Marcus Davenport, an edge rusher, might be coming back soon for them, which would be a big deal. So looking through, let me see if there's super chats here. Ed Chen comes in for the LEMSIP or U.S. equivalent fund. Brian, one of your concerns was the lack of wide receiver to drive explosive. Despite the addition of Rashid, does the Rams loss Sam's issue bring this back up? No, I mean, it's a good question, Ed. I don't have I absolutely had that concern going into the season. The Seahawks have been the most explosive passing offense in a very, very long time this year. So that's no longer a concern. And playing against teams like the Rams, that's one of the teams that's best in the NFL at limiting explosives. They have, they play dime defense a ton. They played it over 50% against the Seahawks. They play a lot of cover 4, which is really a conservative coverage to take away explosive passes. So I don't think that this is a concern about they're not explosive enough. And I thought they actually had, they had the JSN one-hander. They had Rashid Shaheed for a 22-yarder. They had Rashid Shaheed in the end zone for another what would have been explosive play. They almost had Cooper Kupp on an explosive pass that was almost a touchdown. So I don't think explosiveness is something I come out worrying about. It's more just limiting mistakes. And, I think the team can be a little less explosive. They can afford to be even a little less explosive if they also make fewer critical mistakes. And I think that's really the focus point right now. Okay, let's take a look. I'm going to look through some of the other messages in chat just to see where other people are on this. So, yeah, I see people talking about Anthony Bradford again because that absolutely trash account, ML Football. I'm telling you, anyone that posts anything, like shares anything from ML Football, I ignore. Like, that is a trash account. You're going to keep seeing Anthony Bradford lowlights. You are. It's going to happen. One, because he will have some low lows. And two, because engagement farmers have found out that he is an easy target and drives a lot of engagement. And people love to click on it and love to talk about how bad this guy is. I'm not going to join in on that. He had some really bad plays. He's also been a pretty good player at times for the Seahawks. And Seahawks have allowed the fewest sacks in the history of the franchise through 11 weeks. He's part of that offensive line, even if he's been part of a problem as well. So, these things don't move me. They don't move me. I watch every snap. Those engagement farming posts are just to rage bait people, and they work. They work. So I'm not surprised by that. So, and I'll also just offer everyone that's like, yeah, got to get rid of Bradford. I mean, I'll just keep saying it. Who are you going to put in? Like Christian Haynes, maybe if he plays this week and looks really promising, then you can have a conversation. But there's a reason he lost that competition to Anthony Bradford. Also lost it to Satao Lamea last year. Like, that guy's got a lot to prove. And I don't think there's another guy that you say, oh, just put this guy in. So, yeah, the most likely might have been Jalen Sundell and having Olu play center. Maybe that's a conversation when Sundell comes back if Olu plays really, really well. But I wouldn't count on it. So, yeah, people can keep bringing up Anthony Bradford. I still see it as a guy that's going to be part of this team and a guy that I'm really pulling for, because imagine what it's like to be Anthony Bradford, because his friends and family certainly are seeing these things. And I'm sure people are telling him about those things, and people talking about him as the worst football player in the NFL while he's busting his ass. So I don't think that's a great experience for him. And I think the best chance for him to be the best player he's going to be is to actually have support and not have people, piling on. But, people can do whatever they choose to do. All right. Yep, I think the Lions can pull out a win. I'm seeing that. The Bears would be an easy team to beat. I don't know if there's any easy teams, but it certainly would be one I would want to play. Here, really bummed that we're most likely to be in the wild card. League is wide open this year. Losing to the Niners at home and in LA hurt tremendously, especially since we've had both games. Yeah, I mean, honestly, that loss to the 49ers at home, we knew it as soon as it happened. It was going to burn you. You just knew it. You knew it was going to be a problem, and it is. It's absolutely that more than the Rams loss to me is you needed one of those two games and you got neither of them. So that's a problem. All right. Tampa's not a great matchup for us. From Christian Fuerte, we get I agree 11 is the floor, 14 wins and winning out seems possible. Let's see. Sorry, just scrolling through, seeing other chats catching up here. Get this from Rumblebox. The wild card doesn't scare me. We've been road warriors. That is true. It's part of the reason I'm not concerned about that. From Elite TV, I mean, the issue, he doesn't give effort on pass blocking plays. He just stands around. This is about Anthony Bradford again. It's not true. It's just not true. Are there instances where there's clips of that being the case? Yes. I will ask you all again. Go watch a full game with all 22 from the end zone view and just watch the pass plays. Watch every single one of them. Not the worst ones. Watch every one of them. And then tell me if he just stands around not giving effort. It's just not true. It is people creating low light reels to, make people feel the worst kind of way about him. Is that something that he needs to figure out how to be better at when he has those moments and get fewer of them? Yeah. Does Sam Darnold need to have fewer moments where he turns the ball over? Yeah. Are we looking to get rid of Sam Darnold? No. Honestly, if you look at the film against the Rams, Gray Zabel had a worse game than Anthony Bradford. Gray Zabel had a lot of trouble in this game, and I am super high on Gray Zabel. Does Gray Zabel have a lower PFF grade than Anthony Bradford? Yeah, last time I checked, he does. Does that mean he's worse? No. Look, if people are trying to get me to the point where I'm going to be like, I'm not Anthony Bradford's biggest supporter. I think I'm the only person maybe that is not saying he needs to be replaced at all costs. That's the bar that makes me quote his biggest supporter. And so I just think it's a very overplayed storyline. All right. So I think that'll cover it for today. I think I'm going to be going into the VMAC. I'm not sure. Might have some business I got to take care of there. Sam Darnold will be talking to the press and some other players. And then I will not be there for the coordinators at the end of the day. I got to be home, do some stuff for the family. So that will be kind of stuff for today. I am still going to get out. I did a locker room interview with Christian Haynes yesterday. I talked to Abe Lucas a little bit. I spoke to a couple other people, I think. I can't remember who. So I'll get that up for Patreon folks. And go to patreon.com/hawkblogger. That'll get you ad-free audio, get you access to the Discord server. It's also, if you want to leave a gift or get a gift for someone you love, use this QR code or the link in the description of the video. You can give a Patreon subscription to anyone. It could be $5 for 1 month. You can do the rest of the season for like $15, 3 months, and you can do a year. And it's quick, easy. You pick how long you want the subscription to be for. These people get access to a really fun community, and you get an easy, fun gift and a unique one checked off your list. So patreon.com/hawkblogger/gift will be what gets you a chance to give a gift of Patreon to others. Also, want to make sure you head over to simplyseattle.com. If you haven't already, use code HawkBlogger15. That will get you 15% off whatever you're going to buy there. I'm working with them on a pretty cool new shirt and sweatshirt. I can't tell you what it is, but I know that you guys are going to love it when it becomes available. So go over to simplyseattle.com. Keep an eye there. Use code HawkBlogger15 for 15% off. Then go to jkboots.com/hawkblogger. You got to put that whole thing in your browser. That'll get you your own custom promo code. Get the best deal on the best boots you're ever going to own. I love my JK boots. Plus, we've done amazing stuff with charity, Wildland Firefighters Foundation, that helps protect Northwest Forest fires from protect Northwest Forest firefighters from forest fires. That's a lot of F's to say. So great Washington, Spokane-based company, jkboots.com/hawkblogger. And of course, download the Sleeper app, get your latest fantasy football information, get your NBA news, all that on the Sleeper app. And for a limited time, get $20 without even making a deposit. Plus, if you use promo code HAWKS, you get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational over 25 states. Check out Sleeper today. All right. That'll do it, folks. Thank you all for a fun morning, and I'll be back with you tomorrow with Mike Sando before I get on a flight to Nashville. See y'all then. Take care.